They tried to make me go to rehab. I said no.
So when you read this long article about Craig Carton, written by Phil Mushnick, it's the cover of the New York Post. It's the whole cover. Then a pull-out section on pages 6 and 7. He is going in for his sentencing today about 11:30 this morning. Federal court, criminal court in Manhattan. And the very last sentence reads, "My name is Craig, and I'm a compulsive gambler. Last bet, June 22nd, 2018. Something I've said, not Craig, I'm Sid, but something our next guest said many, many years ago, about 50-something years ago. And to his credit, unlike most of us, most gamblers, never had to say it again. He has devoted his life, him and his lovely wife Sheila, to helping compulsive gamblers all over the world, whether it's Pete Rose, Lenny Dykstra, Sid Rosenberg, or Craig Carton, it doesn't matter. He has saved more lives than doctors. I mean that. And he's going to join us this morning here on this day of reckoning for Craig Carton. Many of you know him as Arnie W., but he's my dear friend Arnie Wexler. Good morning, Arnie. How are you?
Sydney, thank you for having me on for this.
You're welcome. Bernie's here, too. Say hello to Bernard this morning,
hello,
Arnie.
Arnie, nice to talk to you again, Arnie. Thanks for coming out, bro.
You too. Thanks.
All right, let's start with this. Let's get to your history quickly, because everybody knows who you are. They hear your name anytime stories like this are in the news. You made your bet, last bet I should say, over 50 years ago, and we know why Craig, why his day of reckoning happened. His whole life fell apart. What was your story, quickly?
Well, I started gambling at 7 or 8 years old. By the time I was 14, I went to the racetrack for the first time. I was making 50 cents an hour after school, and I won $54, and it changed my life. I thought I was going to be a millionaire from gambling, and I was locked in after that.
So when you went to the racetrack, Arnie, I mean, before you went, I mean, did you feel the need? Did you feel some desire? I got to get to the racetrack, or it just bubbled up after you were there because you were there, because it was available to you?
Sydney, I was 14 years old, and a 19-year-old girl took me to Roosevelt Raceway. She lived in the building that I lived in, and that was it. The dream was I was going to be a millionaire and famous and whatever because of the gambling.
Well, listen, every gambler goes through that. They have the early on, usually they have their one big payday, a lot like drugs. You know, you do the first line of cocaine, you'll spend 30 years trying to chase that feeling of that first line. Same thing with gambling. You win early, you think you're always going to win, and you continue to chase it until you can't stop, and your life falls apart. When was your last bet, and what was it that made you stop that day?
April 10th, 1968 was my last bet. What had happened was in February, a guy came to work in my place. Actually, in Christmas time, a guy came to work in my place. I thought he was a millionaire, so I was going to tap him for money to bail out. I owed 3 years annual salary. Sheila and I were married 7 years. We had 2 kids in the house, and everything was a disaster. So what had happened was this guy told me to go to a 12-step program to get help for gambling. Turned out, after 3 weeks of him bothering me, he said the magic words. He says, they help you straighten out money problems. I thought that meant they were going to pay off my gambling debt. I never went to get help. I just went to get bailed out. And on April 10th, I made my last bet. It was the Mets against the Giants in San Francisco, Marichal and Seaver. Wow. Bottom of the 9th inning, I blew the game.
Wow. So, the reason why I asked that question, I'll tell you, is first of all, Phil Mushnick, his overarching point in his big, long piece today about Craig Carton and gambling is that this new legalized sports gambling that makes it available to everybody sitting on their couch, no matter who you are, where you are. The easy availability is going to bring out the gambling illness in people, a latent gambling illness that they might not even realize is there. Do you agree with, you believe that?
100% right, you said, and that's the big worry here. You got people that never gambled before because they wouldn't do anything illegal or gamble with a bookmaker. Now it's available and it's okay, and those people are going to try it, and some of those people that have the genes are going to be hooked. You're not going to be able to get a seat in a Gamblers Anonymous room 2 years from now.
Yeah. Bernie and Sid here with Arnie Wexler. the day that Craig Carton gets sentenced. He'll be sentenced in about 3 hours. So, yeah, I know you're very close with Phil Mushnick. Arnie, you guys have been very, very good friends for many, many, many years. And he's got a soft spot when it comes to the gambling. So, or a hard spot. Look, there's two schools of thought with Craig Carton because he was such a polarizing figure on the air. There are the folks that just don't like him, and they think he's greedy, and he's obnoxious, and he broke the law, and basically F him. And there are folks like me, and I was, by the way, the subject of a lot of his vitriol, a lot of it, who say, hold on a second. It's obvious by what this kid did. He's got a problem, and a really serious problem. So I tend to be more sympathetic. So those are the two Craig Carton, those are how people describe him. Which one is more accurate?
Well, a compulsive gambler is very sick, and our mind goes crazy, and we do crazy stuff, and we like to blame everybody else. It's hard to look in the mirror and say, hey, I got a gambling problem. You're blaming everybody else. You're looking at everybody else. And it's a very insidious disease because it's so hidden and visible. You can't see it. You can't smell it. There's no track marks. It's not like drugs and alcohol. And the worst part is nobody understands this addiction unless you're living with it and you have it. In fact, I went to meet Craig Carton's lawyer, and I spent time in New York, and I gave him my book, and we started talking, and I thought he was going to defend compulsive gambling, but, you know, the real problem is the lawyers don't understand how to defend compulsive gambling.
No. In fact, he's got a wonderful lawyer, Gottlieb, and we have guys like Arthur Aidala. He'll be on in a couple of minutes. Joe Tacopina, Jose Baez on all the time. They love Gottlieb. They think he's a big-time lawyer. And I couldn't understand, Arnie, from the very beginning, from day one after Craig got arrested, why they didn't go right to the gambling. They actually said, no, that's not it, until he was guilty. And now, of course, they've gone there. Why not go there from day one?
I agree with you. I went to, like I said, I went to New York. Actually, I was on the show with Adela a couple of last
Yes,
year.
Channel 5 you're on. We saw it, Bernie and I. You're on Channel 5 with Arthur. That's right.
And he's a fabulous lawyer. So, these guys, I testified in maybe 50 cases, Sid, and I've only seen two lawyers that really got it and understood it. And the interesting part is one of the lawyers was a guy that handled the case for a woman in Florida who embezzled some money from the state. She got 17 years in jail, and the lawyer absolutely understood it, but the judge don't get it.
Right. Now, listen, Arnie Wexler from Gambling Anonymous, this jail sentence, this horrible thing that this guy Craig Carton is going to experience. Now, look, is there a silver lining? Could there possibly be a silver lining in that it might cure him of this disease as opposed to him getting whacked by some angry creditor on the street?
You know, the only good part is that people are going to start to look at compulsive gambling a little differently, and some people are going to know it. My wife just told me Wendy Williams was on, and 400 people have come to Alcoholics Anonymous and for help, and she got 10,000 calls from people trying to talk to her. So that's the good part of it, but the bad part of it, nobody really understands this, and Craig is going to end up probably in jail. And the shame of it is he's a stone-cold compulsive gambler from all the way back to the station in New Jersey.
Well, even before then, he actually used to own websites. For the guy, a friend of mine named Mark Lawrence, I think he owned the very first tout service ever, VegasExperts.com, which was way before New Jersey 101.5. It's been his whole life, basically, Craig, from when I started working with him back in the late 1990s down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Why do you think, Arnie, people are just refuse to accept the fact that whether it's drugs or drinking or gambling or anyone, sex, eating, why are they so hard-nosed against it? They're quick to say, you're just weak, you're just, you're irresponsible, you've got, they just refuse to accept that it is what it is medically, which it is a disease. Why are they so against that?
Because they don't understand it and nobody really does education about it. And the fact is, it's really a brain disorder. Anybody that has an addiction, it's something messed up in the brain that's different than people that do not have an addiction.
Well, a lot of people, of course, Arnie, believe it's a choice that people make, that every bet you make is a choice. At that particular point, you can make a choice to stop or to continue. That's what people believe.
But that's not true, right, Arnie? For some people it is, obviously, for some. But if you're Craig or me, quite frankly, or Lenny or Pete, that's not true, is it?
Absolutely 100%. We could stop when we stop gambling, we have a choice. When you're gambling or drugging or drinking, there's really no choice. The drug owns you, the drinking owns you, and the gambling owns you 100%.
Right. None of us want to lose our families and our jobs, and well, you know what's going to happen. Well, you kind of know there may be some repercussions down the road, but when you're desperate, you do some desperate things. Last one, do you think now that Craig, in fact, has come out, admitted to all of this? There's going to be a short movie coming out about it soon, too, Arnie. Do you think that will help him today in the sentencing?
I wish the judge would understand this addiction. I've been in front of judges that did understand it, but very few. I remember going in front of Judge Leibowitz in Brooklyn with a case, and this guy stole $800,000, and the prosecution said, we don't want to hear from Arnie, he's not an expert. And the judge said, let him speak. And the judge gave this guy probation, 5 years probation, and restitution to pay every week. And I was shocked because I always heard that Judge Lieberman was a killer judge. Turned out he really understood the addiction.
Wow, $800,000 and just got probation. Hey, listen, Arnie, on behalf of a lot of folks, whether you're me or Bernie, we thank you so much for what you've done. Really, 50 years, you and Sheila, God bless her, dedicating your lives to helping people struggling out there. And I know you hear this all the time, man, but you have no idea how much you do for people on a daily basis, and we love you for that. Thank you.
Thank you,
That's
Arnie.
what keeps us in recovery. Thanks, Sid.
Okay. Arnie Wexler, we'll take a short break.